There is a very specific moment many women experience at least once in their romantic life. It is that moment when family and friends start asking when the wedding is happening, and you smile politely, but something small and unmistakable twists inside your chest. It is not fear. It is not doubt in the dramatic sense. It is more like a quiet whisper inside you telling you that something feels off. That whisper exists to protect you long before anyone else can. Because here is the truth most people never explain. Love is not enough. Chemistry is not compatibility. And those butterflies that used to make your knees weak have never been a qualification for lifelong partnership. What follows is the checklist most people avoid because the questions feel uncomfortable. But avoiding these questions is exactly why so many marriages fall apart. You are not cynical for wanting clarity. You are not difficult for wanting standards. You're simply choosing not to walk blindfolded into decades of emotional consequences. Marriage does not repair problems. Everything you ignore today multiplies when life becomes heavier than dating ever prepared you for. So begin with the question that most people are too afraid to ask. Can you handle their worst day not once, but repeatedly for the next 40 years? Not the version of them that brings flowers or laughs at inside jokes. The version of them that shuts down, snaps, blames, or becomes unrecognizable under stress. That version will return. Marriage guarantees it. And if their worst day already feels unbearable, imagine what it becomes with bills, exhaustion, and responsibilities piled on top. People tell you to follow your heart, but the heart can be misleading. The heart confuses attraction for alignment. It mistakes intensity for intimacy. It sees potential instead of patterns. That is why your mind must ask the questions your heart refuses to. The next question is simple but powerful. Do they take responsibility for their actions? Or do they rewrite history to protect their ego? Listen to how they speak about their ex. Do they take accountability? Or does every story end with them as the hero and everyone else at fault? Do they describe conflicts with honesty? Or do they conveniently forget the parts where they contributed to the problem? A person who cannot say "I was wrong" will never be capable of meeting you halfway. Marriage requires humility thousands of times across years and decades. If they defend every mistake instead of owning it, you will eventually become the villain in their stories too. Then comes one of the most uncomfortable truths of long-term love. Financial compatibility matters even more than physical chemistry. People romanticize passion, but they underestimate the emotional destruction of fighting about money at 2 a.m. while children sleep down the hall. Money is not a superficial topic. It is the language of values, represents stability, responsibility, planning, and partnership. Ask yourself this. Can you talk about money openly with them? Can you discuss budgets without defensiveness? Do they hide purchases? Do they treat planning for the future as unnecessary stress? If their eyes glaze over when you mention financial goals, that is not a personality quirk. It is a preview of future conflict. Successful marriages are built on aligned values and shared decisions, not on romantic speeches. The next truth reveals itself quietly but consistently. How do they treat people who cannot offer them anything? Watch how they treat waiters, service workers, parents, and strangers. Watch how they react when someone vulnerable asks for help. Because kindness when it is convenient means very little. Kindness under pressure exposes who they really are. Someone who speaks cruelly to strangers is someone who will eventually speak cruelly to you when you are tired, overwhelmed, or not meeting their expectations. Contempt towards others always finds a new target. Then there is the conversation almost every couple avoids until it is too late, the conversation about children, not simply whether you want them, but the deeper questions that shape an entire future. How many do you imagine? What happens if conception becomes difficult? Who takes on more childcare? What values shape discipline, education, faith, and daily routines? Many couples marry believing they share the same vision, only to realize they meant completely different things. Avoidance before the wedding does not transform into clarity after the vows. Avoidance multiplies. Compatibility is not about liking the same movies or sharing hobbies. It is about being able to disagree without disrespect. So the next question is vital. Can you argue with them without the conflict turning into emotional destruction? Do they bring up old mistakes? Do they threaten to leave when frustrated? Do they shut down for days? These are not small concerns. These are patterns that eventually erode the emotional foundation of a marriage. If they already fight in ways that feel unfair or deeply painful, marriage gives them more access to your vulnerabilities, not less. Some people cannot resist using that access as ammunition. You're not demanding perfection. You are seeking someone who does not turn into a weapon when they are angry. The next truth is subtle but powerful. Do they respect you when you disappoint them? Anyone can be loving when everything aligns. The real question is how they behave when you set boundaries, when you say no, or when you express a need they do not agree with. Contempt is one of the strongest predictors of divorce. Respect is what outlasts passion. Then there is a question that many people do not consider until they are already married. Are you a better person around them? Not temporarily happier, but better, more grounded, more patient, more aligned with the version of yourself you want to become. Because you become who you are with most frequently. Their habits become your habits. Their insecurities become your insecurities. If you shrink around them, you will continue shrinking inside the marriage. If you feel more anxious around them, that anxiety will deepen, not disappear. What looks like compromise today can easily become self-erosion tomorrow. Another truth reveals itself after conflicts. The most important predictor of relationship longevity is not how often you argue, but how you repair the argument. Can either of you reach out first to reconnect? Or does someone always need to win? Marriage is a lifelong cycle of rupture and repair. A partner who insists on winning every argument will eventually make you lose yourself. A partner who keeps score will drain the emotional savings of the relationship. You are not seeking a doormat. You are seeking someone secure enough to say, "Let us fix this," before proving their point. But perhaps the most brutal question is the one most people never admit aloud. If you are asking, "Should I marry them?" some part of you already knows the answer. Your intuition is whispering, yet you fear listening because it means confronting the future you already sense. Are you trying to convince yourself? Are you explaining away red flags to friends? Are you defending their behavior more than they are improving it? Often what keeps people in the wrong relationship is not love. It is investment. It is the years spent. It is the imagined wedding. It is the fear of starting over. But remaining in the wrong relationship steals far more time than walking away ever will. Better to feel embarrassed now than regretful 5 years into a life that feels suffocating. Better to leave a relationship than to co-parent with someone who disrespects or exhausts you. Having standards is not difficult. It is self-protection. Most people marry potential instead of reality. They marry the person they hope their partner might become instead of the person standing in front of them today. But real marriage is choosing someone in their most human state. Not the highlight reel, not the curated version, tired version, the overwhelmed version, the frustrated version. Ask yourself this final question. Could you tolerate being stuck in an airport with them for 12 hours? Not the romantic version, the real one, unshowered, hungry, stressed, and impatient. That is closer to the true face of marriage than any fantasy of candlelit dinners or sunset vacations. You deserve someone who passes this checklist without you having to minimize your expectations. You deserve someone whose presence makes life feel steady, not unpredictable. And if the answers to these questions make you realize they are not your person, that realization is not failure. It is clarity. And clarity is what sets you free. You have one life. Choose the partner who honors it.